everyone. My name is Raya Zion, and I am the manager of Laney College's Student Employment Center. So we do have an employment center, and we are helping students virtually, their resumes, or preparing for interviews or their job searches in whatever specific sector they are looking for. My email is rzion@peralta.edu. And you could email me or ask Amy for my email in the future if you'd like to reach out to get some job coaching or any type of coaching pertaining to careers or jobs. And today I'm very happy to present Christine Eckhaus, a longtime associate of mine. I actually worked with Christine. She was a recruiter. I was working for the Workforce Board when I was working in the green and the clean tech sector. She was working at the time with Sengevity. But right now she is in the bio sector. So Christine Eckhaus is leadership coach and executive recruiter with a diverse background, having served tech giants as well as early stage through IPO, post-IPO startups in biotechnology, technology, energy, and consumer packaged goods. Christine is excited to speak to Laney's students and to share her thoughts and ideas about continuing to navigate and ultimately thrive in the uncertainty of our current reality. Please email me at rzion@peralta.edu if you'd like to find out more about the employment services. Thank you.
Thanks, Raya. That was a really nice introduction. I'm flattered. And thank you everyone for being here. I'm excited to speak with you and to hear your thoughts as well today. Just a little bit maybe of designing how we can go forward. This is my first sort of Zoom PowerPoint presentation, so if ever you can't hear me or you're having any problems, please don't be afraid to speak up and interrupt so that we know. I'd rather be interrupted and kind of regroup than lose you. So Zoom is asking me to add a password, and I'm going to ignore it, and hopefully we can still go forward with the presentation, see how it goes. So today I want to chat with you. Good, it works. I love it when I can ignore things that pop up on my screen. It still works. So today our agenda is to talk about a little bit about our uncertain reality, some of the impacts of COVID-19 that we're seeing already, the outlook for bio and health jobs, and then some skills to prioritize, some job search tips, and then Q&A, whatever you'd like to talk about. I'm happy to entertain and, give you at least my opinion, if not a reasonable answer. So without further ado, hopefully, okay. So these are some of our recent headlines to just kind of bring into our consciousness the reality that we're living in right now. We've got healthcare workers on the front line worried about their own mental health and well-being, the death toll rising worldwide as we rapidly and do everything we can to scale up human trials, look for vaccines, work with therapeutics that we already know about that might be able to help people in their suffering. And then on top of it all, we've got 22 million people or so who have lost their jobs and filed for unemployment. So that's all pretty scary and grim, but one thing to remember, the quest for certainty actually blocks the search for meaning, and uncertainty is the very condition to impel man to unfold his powers. So with that bit of inspiration, some of the things that we've been seeing come out of COVID-19, some of the positives, is increased collaboration. Non-biology companies and tech companies are coming into the space and delivering new value, which is awesome. We're seeing increased innovation and data sharing that's helping us identify patterns and anomalies and more quickly reach breakthroughs that are helping to deliver results and start to develop solutions to some of the situations that we have developing. Clinical trials are faster now and more inclusive, and technology is being increasingly employed. Telemedicine is here. We're witnessing a great crossover between medicine and consumer tech. Virtual health solutions versus clinic visits are here, and everything from physical therapists to general practitioners are meeting their patients either via video or phone if it's a non-emergency situation without compromise. So they're still able to deliver advice and some sort of care. Online tools are on the rise, specifically in monitoring. So patients with cardio conditions and or diabetes, physicians are able to monitor what's going on with them via technology. And that has given way to personalized medicine and targeted patient engagement, which is really cool because clinicians can dial in care for each individual based on the actual data and results that have been produced by the studies that they are doing. We've also witnessed some issues with our medical supply chain, and the shortages that we have sort of gotten through, I think mostly now, or are experiencing, has caused companies and organizations to look at repatriation of some of their manufacturing for medical equipment, devices, and supplies. Even swabs were running in short supply. We're also starting to see companies and organizations rethink their inventory practices. Most of them manufacture offshore and then have just-in-time inventory practices, and they're starting to consider stockpiling a supply for in the event of a disaster or emergency. And that's leading way to companies and organizations innovating and developing emergency protocols and practices to respond to these situations should we ever encounter them again, and to also kind of mitigate the rest of the risk that's going on as COVID unfolds. So preparedness is another really awesome thing that companies and organizations are starting to look at now even more diligently. And one of the really neat things is empowering the workforce. So thinking about, should we experience another emergency or disaster, what may that mean for the workforce, and how can we really take care of ourselves and people who are on the front lines, so to speak. So companies and organizations are assessing capacity in the event of an emergency and looking at how they can stretch their workforce by upskilling and reskilling individuals to be able to provide additional or alternative value in the event of an emergency. And they're also really taking a hard look at caring for the physical and emotional well-being of their employees and contractors now and or in the event of an emergency. So those have been some really great improvements. Virtual health programs are continuing to grow, and I believe that organizations and companies will continue to increase their utilization, make them more robust and durable as time goes on. And same with work from home options. I believe we're going to see those options becoming more available, more reliable, more durable as time goes on. When nothing is sure, everything is possible. So in this ocean of change is a lot of opportunity as well, which is pretty good news for bio and health science in terms of growth of the industry and careers. This is just a quick list of the top 5 bio and health science careers through 2024, pulled it off the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And as you can see, we've got growth from 5 to 23%. Even in an uncertain climate, entering the workforce or continuing your education in this type of outlook is pretty positive. So there's no greater weapon than, of course, a prepared mind. So as we look at what this might mean for you, we can start to think about some skills to really prioritize as you're developing yourself, either through continuing your education and or entering the workforce. There's some really poignant themes that are emerging. These are a few of them. And in terms of, I was discussing this with my son, who's also a college student, and he said, well, what do you look for when you're interviewing people? And maybe that would be helpful to share. I think that many of us in recruiting look for some general themes, and they're listed here, and I can talk more about them as well. So curiosity and learning agility. What that means is people who are really engaged and excited about what they're working on, who find joy in their work and in helping folks or discovering new things, and really want to persevere through, there's a point of failure, great, let's start over and do it again, that type of thing. Folks who take ownership and have a really strong bias for action. So ownership means sort of as if it were your company, as if it were your entire project, really caring, really being present in what you're working on and wanting to see it move forward and wanting to see it out in the world or wherever it's going. And bias for action is really just the ability to persevere, to move with purpose and intention through all of the different roadblocks, twists, turns, nutty things that might happen along the way. We also look for folks who deliver high quality data-driven results. So that can mean a lot of things. Right now, we're seeing multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary skill sets being very, very highly prioritized. I know that means a lot more work. And so for folks who are, wrapping up their education and trying to get into the workforce and maybe don't have more school and the opportunity to learn another skill set, or maybe that's just not available to you, not something you're interested in per se, you can take that band where you are and think about knowing more than just that one thing that you're doing. I kind of use the metaphor of taking the blinders off, understanding what's going on in the organization and how your work contributes to it, and being excited about that is a big thing. Wanting to learn more, whether it's, taking classes or just learning more about what the company or organization is doing and how you could maybe bring more or learn more in that environment. Being able to think big, but also invent and simplify. Simple is hard. It's really hard. Complex is super easy, but simple is hard. How do you say things in less words, not more? How do you take something that could be very complicated and distill it down into what really matters? That's a very important skill set. And written and verbal communications are paramount, especially as we have all this data flying around, charts and graphs and, people working on analytics and coding in addition to bio. Being able to verbalize or write about what that data means is very important, and or what your research means, right? Because if you can't share what you know, then your impact is going to be limited. Being humble and earthy, when I was recruiting at AWS, I was recruiting, data scientists, and I didn't know anything about their world. And the litmus test was, were they willing to explain it to me? And teach me so that I could be even better at what I was trying to accomplish for the company and for them and their team. So some soft skills in this new virtual reality that we're all living in, emotional intelligence is really important. It's hard to read the room. Right now, I can't see all the people that I'm presenting to, which is why I asked you to speak up if you were having any sort of issues or couldn't hear me or whatever, because it's odd to present without being able to see your audience and feel connected and relate to them. So you just have to try your best to really earn the trust of your team, convey that you care, be willing to share your voice, but also be willing to go with the flow, right? It's okay to have an animated discussion in a meeting room and everybody has different opinions, everybody has different ideas, but at the end of the day, when a course of action is determined, all get behind it 100% and, do what's good for the whole. Connect with each other, join clubs, engage in coaching, do peer-to-peer sharing and networking. Just because we're physically distanced doesn't mean that we can't be part of each other's lives and contribute to one another's richness and really focus on what brings you joy. That's going to be the key to taking care of your own health and well-being in these times of emotional charge, roller coaster ride, whatever metaphor you want to use. If you're happy and joyful and willing to take a breath and really be with people, that's going to set you apart. So this is one of my favorite quotes. My aunt sent it to me when I was coming out of grad school. It's also an uncertain time, and the job market was wonky. So I found it just very, very encouraging and delightful. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. Don't wait till COVID's over. Don't wait until we're not physically distanced anymore. If you have an idea, if you're driven to do something, start and see what happens. So in terms of job search tips, this is a tough time. Companies are speeding up and slowing down or don't know what the heck they're doing. They're not sure. And there's a lot of data out there, but there's no real indication of how long this is going to take and what's going to happen, whether there's going to be a vaccine or a therapeutic. We just don't know. So be resilient and positive. Keep searching. Don't put your eggs in one or two baskets. Your dream job might come in many shapes or sizes, even if you think you know what you want. Open the door and experience things. You never know what you might find. Don't be afraid to follow up. A lot of people are hesitant, I just emailed that person last week or one day ago or whatever it is. If you're feeling like, hey, I kind of want to know, follow up. A lot of times people appreciate it and will say, oh, thank you, I've been meaning to reach out to you. Here's what's going on, or here's what next steps are, or whatever the case might be. It never hurts to follow up, and in this day and age, you're much more likely to get a positive response than have someone think that you're bothering them, particularly if it's a recruiter. I can tell you, I love people who follow up. I'm so grateful. So another thing is build and grow your network proactively. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. In this time, a lot of people have, more flexibility, more willingness to chat, more privacy. And so if you're curious about something, see if you can get that person on the phone, connect with them on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'd love to chat. I'm curious about this, or I saw this paper that you wrote or the research that you were part of, and I'm super curious about it. Network with people, get to know them a little bit, and keep in touch from time to time. Talk with everyone and ask for what you want. If you want to learn more, if you love an introduction to somebody over at whatever company, you never know what you're going to find in talking with people. I was having a conversation with a woman at a business meeting, and she said to me, I mentioned for some reason that I have backyard chickens. And she said to me, oh my gosh, what do you do when you have raccoons? Because I have backyard chickens, and the raccoons are attacking them. And I told her, come over to my house, borrow my raccoon trap, problem solved. Long story short, we're still friends to this day. We have networked across 3 different groups. We consistently co-introduce people to one another, and we enrich each other's lives in countless ways, all because of this silly little conversation we had when waiting to figure out which table we were going to be sitting at. So you just never know. If ever anybody invites you for an interview, take it, whether or not you think you want the job. At the very least, it's terrific practice, and you might find out something unexpected or learn something new or make a new friend. I almost didn't go to my interview at Amazon. I was invited to go, and I had my own business, and I was super busy. I had a couple fires burning, and I wasn't sure I could take a day and a half off. Of course, they wanted me to fly to Seattle and meet everyone in person and fly up the night before, and I was thinking, oh man, I can't really do this. And my father actually said to me, are you nuts? Just go and see what happens. And he offered to, sit at the helm of my business for me for that day and a half. And lo and behold, 4 years later, I've learned an awful lot, and I'm really grateful that, he gave me a little push and told me to go. So with that, we can wrap up. I'm actually very interested in Q&A and the follow-up discussion. I'm happy to share any anecdotes that, you might like to know more about. We've covered our uncertain reality, some of the impacts of COVID, a little bit about the bio and health science job outlook, some skills and job search tips. So I'd really like to hear from you and be as much of a resource as I can. So here are some of the sources that I used for the presentation. And then this is my title and my email. And the Q&A slide also has my email at the bottom. So feel free to contact me that way. You're more than welcome. And I turn the floor over to you to answer any questions you might have or anything you'd like to know more about. No questions? Wow. I don't know if I've ever had that happen before. Right? Is everyone just on mute?
Yes, there was just one question about the slideshow. And yes, we'll post, I put a link to the Student Services resource page in the chat where you can also contact Employment Services at Laney. So every one of our speakers, if you click on them, you get their department information. We'll post the slideshow as well as the video, this presentation. Yeah.
Christine, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. This is Jen. I'm taking a biotech class at Laney right now, but I'm interested maybe potentially in clinical lab science. I don't have any experience in that. I was thinking about getting in touch with a clinical lab scientist that I used to work with like 10 years ago when I was doing more research related things, and also thinking about taking prereqs required at UC Extension. Is there anything else that you think would make me like more competitive since I don't think I'd be able to get a job in anything related right now just because I don't have the experience?
So when you connect with this person who you worked with 10 years ago, if there's anything that possible there, like for you to maybe do some part-time work or some interning or something like that, or is there a way that you can bring your current skill set there and maybe, sort of feather yourself into that area?
Yeah, potentially, I guess I could ask about volunteering. I'm not, I'm not sure. I really haven't talked to him yet about anything. But like, so I guess that like a volunteer position would be just as valuable as like people coming in with more like work experience? Or what do you think, like in terms of being a more competitive candidate, would that be enough, do you think?
I think if you could get, like an internship, if you think, because like people tend to be pretty lenient in some instances in terms of interns kind of hiring on potential as opposed to a deep expertise and experience in that particular area. And so if you could find a way to wrap your current expertise up in some way that it would be valuable in that area, or volunteering and then trying to get an internship, use it as a path, in as much as you can.
If I may,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
if I may add to Christine's comment, internships are always great, but if a company is small and they may not have an internship track and they would be open to you volunteering, either way, you may want to also, if it's a possibility, to either intern or volunteer, but without pay, just to get your foot in the door until the position opens up.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Or work for equity.
Yeah.
I've done that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works out, most often it doesn't, but at least, it's something.
Right. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Get your foot in the door and let them see how great a worker you are.
Okay.
And maybe there'll be a position that opens up.
Yeah, remember those principles that I put on the earlier slides about learning agility, being curious, learning more than just your area, taking those blinders off and bringing that, being able to demonstrate it at a company, like Raya said, will let them see your value. And, once you're kind of a known commodity and they know that you're going to work hard, deliver positive results, so on and so forth, I think they'll be more willing, if that's available, to invest in you and train you in a new area.
I had a question, Christine, and I'll get off. When we originally spoke about, you being the guest speaker here, you mentioned some jobs that are going to be kind of transitioning to a work at home, even in the bio field. And I was wondering if you could touch on that.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of interesting, right? So if you think about, which types of positions could be more work from home, so like computational biology to some extent. A lot of them are multidisciplinary though, and one of the things that I think companies are looking at is, okay, so if we can, bio is an essential industry, so companies are continuing to work, how are we going to have people in the lab and still have them be 6 feet apart? How much protective gear do we have? And then how are we going to rotate people through? Because a lot of people have kids at home, right? So if we are going to have folks in the lab, who's it going to be and when, and what kind of scheduling is that going to be? And it may give way to that being a way to offer folks who are traditionally only in the lab the opportunity to change up their environment a little bit. As companies do this more and more, I think that they will, in some instances, be able to avail people more flexibility, especially in careers that, didn't traditionally have that option.
So Christine, one of my colleagues, Doug Bruce, had a question about if you could talk about working with a recruiter and maybe demystify some for students who think it might cost money and things like that.
Yeah, so recruiters, there are a couple different types. And so if you interact with a corporate recruiter, right, somebody who works for a particular company in recruiting, that person is there to help you through the process and is your point of contact for feedback, for scheduling. They're sort of like the hub of the wheel for you, right? And it's their job to make sure that you have as seamless a candidate experience as possible. And so you should feel free to ask them for whatever it is you need. Ask them to prepare you for your interview. Who am I meeting? What's it going to be like? Don't be afraid to ask any of your recruiters any questions. It will just help you be better prepared for what's to come. An outside recruiter at like a recruiting firm, so they are paid by the client, which is the company is the client. A company hires them to go out and find talent for a specific job or a range of skill sets, and they pay a fee generally per hire, but sometimes if it's, well, it depends on the type of engagement. Sometimes they pay recruiters on a monthly retainer basis. It just depends on what they're looking to do with the recruiter. But regardless, the candidate, which would be you guys looking for the job, or job seeker candidate, does not have to pay the recruiter. There are recruiters out there who, few and far between, who work for people and help them find jobs. Those recruiters will charge individuals. But you should know that up front. And if somebody is contacting you, it's more likely that they are being retained by the company. So you could ask them in the first 2 minutes of conversation, yeah, sure, I'm happy to chat with you. I just want to clarify, are you employed by the company or by a search firm, or, you know, what is our relationship? And then if they say, no, you would hire me yourself, then unless you want to pay someone to help you find a job, you know, that would be the scenario. And don't be afraid. I mean, recruiters are pretty adept and pretty used to talking about fees, salaries, bonuses, money in general. So don't be afraid to say, you know, hey, would I pay you, or what is that relationship, to be 100% clear if you're not sure.
Cool. You have one other question in the
They'll
chat.
also help you with salary negotiations.
Oh, right. Right. In the chat, Paul from our biomanufacturing department put a question about job opportunities and COVID testing, and there is more information in the question, but the main part at the end is how are biotech companies that are pivoting to work with COVID adapting their procedures to keep workers safe as well?
Yeah, so that's a super interesting area right now. There are a lot of things going on, and most of them are being defined as we speak. So I would keep your eye on the news to see kind of what the protocols are as they start to roll them out. I think that, you know, the experience that I have is working with a company that doesn't directly work with, you know, frontline personnel, so on and so forth. But I can tell you that folks that I know and discussions that I've had with people, that is a really interesting area that's continuing to evolve. So I don't have a lot of certainty around that, but I do know that they're very focused on, you know, how are we going to keep people safe? What's our protocol going to be? How are we going to continue to keep the business running as normally as possible? What are potential risks and roadblocks? They're really thinking deeply about this, which I think is super positive for now and also going forward.
Thank you. Great. Yeah. If there are other questions, you're welcome to type them in the chat, or if you want to just jump in and ask, you're welcome to do that too. Sometimes people typing takes a while, right? And again, right, this was recorded. We're going to put it on our website, which is also in the chat. So our department puts on a student services speaker series every semester. Thank you for testing out how to do this online. This is our first one online, so that we appreciate you coming in to do this. Next week, we have one about mental health during this period of time. So, see, do you want to just ask? Yeah, can you tell us about what 10X is working on? That's a question.
Yes, so 10X manufactures instruments, right? And what those instruments do is allow researchers to, in many cases, get down to the single cell level and then understand the genetic makeup of each cell in a tissue sample, and also understand the clustering of the cells across the tissue sample. So, like, to explain a demo of what it would look like, a researcher puts a tissue sample inside our device or instrument, and they take an image of the tissue sample before they do anything with it. Then they process the tissue sample. Our embedded technology takes, you know, different readings and collects all the data. And then what happens as the ultimate result is all of that data is collected and collated and sent into our data visualization tool. And the researcher is able to see the original image of the tissue sample with the cell clustering data overlaid. And if they mouse over the cell clusters, it pops up the genetic profile of each cell in that cluster. So that's what 10X does. We're working on a couple additional things along those lines and making our technology more robust and durable. Our SVP of technology at AGBT just announced that we're going to be putting together a cloud offering so that customers will be able to run that data across a 10X cloud and then into the data visualization tool. So there are a couple cool things going on sort of in general with 10X, but that's a basic primer of what we do. The website also has a bunch of information. Our instruments are being used in research for COVID, so we're pretty excited about that. But yeah, for more information, there's a lot on the website, and you're also welcome to email me.
So with that, the next question really, Christine, is do you guys ever hire entry-level people in Pleasanton, or I don't know, where are your facilities?
Yeah, so the headquarters is in Pleasanton. We also have an office in San Francisco, and then Leiden, which is in the Netherlands, Sweden, and Singapore. So Pleasanton is the main office. So the answer is yes, sometimes. This year has been a little strange with everyone working from home. We've hired a couple entry-level and intern, folks in software and also in R&D, and I think also in microfluidics, so mechanical engineering and manufacturing. We're starting to develop that program more and more. Right now, there are about 650 global employees. There's not necessarily a fully baked internship program. It's more like, here's your hiring manager, and they're gonna work with you. Not a big program, which I think is kind of cool. I think it would be a great place to check back next year, maybe even in January. But right now, it's a little strange, kind of like everywhere else, right? And it's hard to hire interns and have them work remotely outside of software.
Another person that is, I guess, too shy to ask texted me a question, if that's okay.
Okay.
He was wondering, and it's not Douglas Bruce, by the way. So this anonymous person is wondering and would like to know more about upskilling opportunities for both your existing staff and your talent pipeline. So I'm not sure exactly what it means, but do you guys do a training in-house for upskilling, or do you promote from within?
Yeah, so the organization definitely, like any company, wants to be able to promote from within. Well, we have had in the past. Now training's weird because some things are not available, virtually. You just can't, it doesn't work. And so, but we have things like everything from behavioral interviewer training to, customers coming in to speak and talk about their use cases. It's not necessarily prescribed training in that context, but it's super interesting to see, what the instruments are being used for and how customers are utilizing our technology. So I think, in the presentation when I referred to upskilling and reskilling, I was actually thinking more about like healthcare workers, but every organization is open to that, I think just in general, right? And broadening their employees' learning. They don't necessarily all sponsor it. I think they certainly try to enrich it in-house as much as they can. And I think that it's a little bit, especially in earlier stage companies, it's a little bit on a case-by-case basis. So if you can make a case for why this would benefit and what the ROI would be and what it would bring to the table for the company as a whole, you have a much better chance if the program doesn't exist or if it's a continuing education that you're after for yourself or program that you're trying to start, you have a much better chance of actually getting it done. And I think it really just goes back to like being super passionate and curious about it and being resilient, because you might get no a couple times. Keep asking. It's okay. So, one day they'll be ready.
Two final, I guess we have to end in about 5 minutes, but Douglas Bruce, the head of the Biomanufacturing department, wants to ask about your production associate 1 position in Pleasanton. But I'd also that, and then my question is, if that's the 2 last ones, in general in biotech, in biomanufacturing or biology, when a person that's entry level goes into an interview, what do they expect? Is it a behavioral interview? Do they have to bring a portfolio, their grades, or what is expected in an initial interview? And then also if you could talk about the production associate 1 in Pleasanton?
Yeah, sure. So I'll go in reverse order. So what to expect in your first interview, right? It depends on the company. A lot of companies are going to behavioral interviewing or have already, behavioral interviewing is not a new thing, but it kind of fell out of vogue, especially kind of with the advent of resumes. And then people could just talk about, oh yeah, I've done this, 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 and this. It didn't matter how you did it, just that you did it. And then, we figured out, oh, it actually does matter how you did it. And how much of it you did. So yeah, you should expect and prepare for, behavioral interviewing questions. But I think if you specifically, have a company that you're going to meet, the best thing to do is ask the recruiter, how do I prepare for this? What can I expect? Who am I meeting? And if they, can give you the names and the titles, which they should be able to do, or even if they just give you the names and you go and search everybody up on LinkedIn. If you're meeting with higher level people who have written and published documents, go look at those publications and be able to talk about it as much as you can, or at least demonstrate some curiosity about it. There are all kinds of things that you can do when you search people on LinkedIn. And if they don't have a lot of information, Google them and see what you find and look for commonalities, right? So that you have, when you walk into that interview, something that you want to talk about with each person that you're going to meet. It's not just, them interviewing you. You should also be prepared to interview them and have at least 2 or 3 questions for each interviewer. That's not just like, so what's it like to be on your team? Why did you join this company? Not a same. I could ask every interviewer on the list this question. I want to know from you about this specific thing. What can you share? What can you tell me about working at this place or going to this school or this paper that you wrote? That type of thing. So, but I would really lean in on the recruiter and find out as much as you can. No question's a silly question, and we're always happy to help candidates, or we should be. Otherwise, we might not be recruiters very long. And then production associate role in 10X. Feel free to shoot me your resume if you're interested in the job. I can introduce you to the right person. That's not a role that I'm personally recruiting for, but I can get you connected and see where we go. Also, if there are questions that you have for that person, I can connect you guys via email, and you can ask questions if you don't know, like whether or not you're interested in the job, you want to know more. I'm sorry, I can't go deep there. It's not something I'm recruiting for.
I guess, Amy, are we out of time, or?
We can keep going if other people have questions, or we can, and I just put the link to our website again through the biology department, so we can post this video as well as contact your office. If you click on your name, it gets to your department, things like that. So, but
just about our department. So as Christine was mentioning, how to work with recruiters and not in-house recruiters who are working in the company, but recruiters that are working outside the companies, let's say in a temp service that may be able to get you your first opportunity in a bio company, in a research and development or whatever. We at the Employment Center, we could help you with that as well. Laney College just have an online jobs database called Legal Hire, and you could search for jobs there. And I know that Douglas Bruce also has an email list of a lot of opportunities in the bio field, but we could definitely help you with not only resumes, but if you want to practice interviewing, we have 2 excellent job coaches that will run through an interview with you.
cool.
And maybe Christine will do a role playing once in a while with us.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Or if you guys, want a thing on behavioral interviewing, happy to do that too. I can do a chat or, presentation.
Maybe
yeah, it's up to you, but I know quite a bit about behavioral interviewing and have some fun questions that we can practice with and that sort of thing. So I'm happy to be a resource on that front too.
Oh, that's excellent. So we could maybe, if someone's interested. Well, first, the employment office is doing these spotlight kind of videos, which this will be one and we'll post it. But if anyone's interested in maybe role playing with you, or we can make a few appointments with you whenever you're available to just role play and prepare people for interviews, which I hope they will.
Yeah, totally happy to do that.
Somebody just asked about the posting the video, and yes, we're going to post it on our website, and I can also send it around, and I'll send it definitely to the faculty in our department too, to send to their students if that's who's here. Yeah.
And we will post it on our webpage.
Cool.
You're going to be a star, Christine.
Cool.
Star.
My gosh, I know. I'm sort of overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yes.
Wow, I don't know what to do. No, I'm happy to help you guys any way that I can.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you both for putting this together. This was great, right? We can all do our clapping emojis. Yay, clapping.
Fun.
I have to
Thank
find
you guys for bearing with me. And ignoring that Zoom sort of window. I realized I was sharing my screen and it was right in front. So, but anyway.
Right, well, we appreciate it. And yes, it was really great and very, very helpful. And if anyone has questions, right, you can contact any of us.